If death was brutally murdering your friends in freak accidents and you're next, what would you do? There's nowhere safe to hide, and it won't stop hunting everyone down until you're all dead. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat death in the Final Destination. In 5 minutes, everyone here will be dead. These 4 friends are watching a car race hoping to see a crash, when Nick here notices something is wrong. Looking up, he sees a huge crack in the foundation of the building and gets a strange feeling that something terrible is about to happen. Death has just picked its next victims, and he's about to turn this place into hell on Earth. Down on the track, a tool flies out the back of one of the cars and lands on the road. Suddenly, a car runs over the tool, setting the vehicle flipping through the air, and a loose tire flies into the crowd, taking this woman's head clean off. Panicking, the audience runs for the exits, but another car catches fire and crashes into the stands, crushing another man to death. The hood of another car is flung off the track and slices this couple in half. Death is having an absolute field day, and as the crowd is trying everything they can to squeeze themselves through the exit, Nick realizes there's no way out of here alive. Okay, this is absolute chaos. The exits are jammed, the building is collapsing, and race cars are crushing people in the stands. But there's actually one thing Nick here can do to have a greater chance at surviving than anyone else. In the 1950s, the government implemented the Federal Civil Defense Administration to educate the public about how to protect themselves in case of an air raid or nuclear attack. The famous solution they came up with was to simply duck and cover if you're in a collapsing building. The problem is, this stadium has nothing for these people to hide under, and we need a different strategy to protect ourselves called the Triangle of Life. Now, this is not a standard government-supported recommendation, but it applies perfectly in this situation because the only points of safety are these support beams. You should position yourself next to them and lie on the floor in the fetal position. This creates a triangle of safety that protects you from the collapsing building. The ceiling will collapse at its weakest point between the support beams, and these pillars here are reinforced with steel rebar. So we have a much higher chance of survival if we crouch here in one of these corners while everyone else scrambles for a way to escape. Suddenly, a huge piece of the ceiling crushes everyone in the crowd that's trapped in the exit, and Nick here turns around to look for his girlfriend. That's when an explosion goes off and he watches Lori and the security guard consumed in flames. Thrown back from the impact, he's pushed straight into a piece of rebar, but just before he dies, he suddenly finds himself back in the bleachers as if nothing ever happened. Nick here looks around confused, but slowly starts to realize that he's reliving the events right before the crash, and they're all about to die if they don't leave this place immediately. Refusing to leave, his friend pushes him down into the crowd, knocking someone over and starting a fight. Nick and his friends run out of the arena, and the angry spectators follow him out of the building to finish what he started. Outside, he tells them that there's going to be a huge crash, and they don't believe him. But suddenly, they hear an explosion. Turning around, they see the audience running for their lives as a ball of flame erupts behind them. This man tries to go back in to save his wife, but the security guard holds him back for his safety. That's when a wheel comes flying out of the arena and decapitates this woman just like the Vision, and all of them are frozen in shock. That's 1 down with 8 to go, and death is just getting started. That night, Nick here and his friends meet up at a coffee shop to process the gruesome deaths they just witnessed. But the boyfriend gets the feeling that this is only the beginning. The girlfriend suggests they should all go to the memorial tonight to honor those that died in the accident, but the others refuse to go back. That's when he tells them he saw a vision of everything that happened, including his own death, but the frat bro thinks he survived because of his lucky coin. This man's luck is going to run out sooner than he thinks, because he's going to have the most horrifying death of them all. Okay, this is a pretty freaky situation, because Nick here had a clear experience of his own death and has no answers for what just happened. Now this operates outside of the realms of science, because there's no way to prove what he saw or experienced was real. But if he simply followed the news, he would have quickly realized this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We can see on this TV news report that the name of the racetrack is called the McKinley Speedway. And McKinley is the same town where 4 years ago, a bunch of kids died on a roller coaster at a local amusement park. But a girl and her friends got off the ride because she had a premonition that they were all going to die. If they live in the same town, it wouldn't be difficult to put the pieces together that there were at least 3 separate occasions of kids who had premonitions of their own deaths, and every single survivor of these tragic accidents are now dead. These guys don't want to go to the memorial service, but we should definitely go, because it's where we are most likely to find as many of the survivors all in one place before they all start dying. Now, at this point, we don't have enough information to figure out that death is going to hunt us down in any particular order, but we have good enough reason to think that we are all going to die in freak accidents, so the best thing to do is have as many eyes on everyone at all times to prevent it from happening. I would show them the research and convince them to wear cameras and earpieces, because they could die from anything at any time, and if we can see the signs that death is coming for them, then we might be able to alert them and help them escape the situation. It's definitely a positive to keep others alive, but my real motivation is to use the others to collect evidence of how death tries to kill them, so that I know what to look for when it decides to come after me. We need to be looking at the other survivors as a way to gain information, because the more we know about the threat, the better we will be at evading it for as long as possible. On the night of the memorial, the survivors attend the service to pay their respects. Nick here is leaving with his girlfriend when a security guard from the speedway stops them. He's about to ask the boyfriend how he knew about the crash before it happened when another survivor confronts the man and blames the guard for letting his wife die. Calling him a racial slur, this man lets the guard know that he's coming after him for revenge. Back at home, Nick here is sleeping when he has a dream of a house with a red door and a metal hook and a huge ball of flames. Across town, the racist man drives to the security guard's house looking for revenge. He takes out a wooden cross from the back of his tow truck, but accidentally knocks the hook loose as it falls to the ground. Leaving it in the street, he starts digging a hole in the guard's lawn to put the cross in when a gust of wind blows his mirror ornament loose, turning on the radio. The sound vibrations from the music rattle these beer cans off the dashboard and onto the gear shift, knocking the truck out of park. The car drives off, and the man runs up to get inside, but the doors are locked shut and he has no way to stop it. Behind him, the truck's hook catches his legs and begins to drag him across the pavement. A gas canister spills out the back of his truck, and as a chain spark from the friction, the trail catches on fire. He's pulled across the street screaming as his whole body is engulfed in flames. Suddenly, the truck explodes on a fireball, sending the racist's head flying on the guard's lawn, charred to a crisp. That's 2 down and 7 to go. Okay, Nick here definitely should have seen this coming, because death showed him clues in a dream hours before any of this ever happened. This dream is vital information that we can't take for granted, because if we can use it to anticipate what will happen, then we might be able to prevent our deaths for as long as possible. The first clue from the dream is a red door with the address 617. There's no street name, but we could compile a list of addresses in the town with the same house number to discover if anyone we know might live in them. The next piece of information is a hook on a chain. At the memorial service, we saw that this angry redneck had a necklace with a hook on it. This would lead me to think the man might die at this address in the near future. This is a major advantage, because if we know in advance that the redneck is being targeted first, we can use him as a guinea pig and set a trap for death. If the remaining survivors contribute funding to build a bulletproof cage and lock him inside with no way for death to ever get in, we will learn some extremely useful information. Either death will skip him and kill the next victim, or it won't move on to someone else until the redneck is dead, which would be great for the rest of the survivors. The interesting thing is, Nick here has access to information that would support this strategy, because it's been used before by a former survivor of Flight 180 who was in the local news. She managed to evade death for over a year by locking herself into a mental asylum and only died by leaving the facility to help other survivors. The only difference in this case is that we're using the strategy against someone's will to observe how death will react to the situation. As cruel as it sounds, it would be hard for the redneck to argue with our methods, because he's already been targeted, and as soon as he's released from the prison we made for him, he'll be killed by death. If he stays alive for long enough, then we can confirm that death is governed by specific rules of who and when to kill, and we should keep the redneck imprisoned for as long as we can to stop death from ever getting to us next. But there's one more strategy that could have saved them all right then and there. We need to get this guy a damn hobby. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. And if you feel like you're wasting your life on things that don't make you happy, Skillshare is the perfect place for you to explore new skills, develop existing interests, and get lost in creativity. Look at your life right now. Which of these two do you want to be? Do you want to be a racist who's grieving his dead wife, planting crosses in other people's yards in the middle of the night? Or do you want to learn illustration and action, creating stylized portraits with Andrea Pippins, illustrator, author, and graphic designer? It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Skillshare offers membership with meaning. Experience real-time inspiration as you connect with popular teachers while watching and working along with other members. I feel like Skillshare is legitimately a how to beat and how to win at life website, but the easiest thing to do is to procrastinate and postpone, when the best thing you can do is to just sign up now. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free membership to Skillshare Premium for 1 month, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. The next morning, Lori here gets a call from her friend to turn on the news, and she watches a report about the redneck dying in a freak accident. She tells her boyfriend Nick to come look, and he's shocked when he recognizes the red door from his dream. That's when he suddenly has another vision, seeing scissors, a smoking cigarette, and a woman's eye. Realizing this is becoming a pattern, he tells his girlfriend that the dream he had last night was a vision with clues of how the redneck would die, and he's just had another. Someone else is going to get killed, but he has no idea who is next. Meanwhile, across town, one of the other survivors is at a beauty salon getting her hair cut, but death is already setting things in motion. The hairstylist offers her some water to drink and sets it aside on the dressing table, but the condensation moves an aerosol can towards a hot iron. The hairstylist is focused on the woman's hair and doesn't notice that above them, the fan is beginning to shake loose. Suddenly, her kids come running into the salon and slip on the floor, distracting the women. That's when the spray bottle overheats and rockets towards the fan, breaking it off the ceiling, and it comes crashing to the floor. Luckily, it misses the women, but death isn't done yet. After her appointment, she's about to leave the salon when the groundskeeper drives by in his lawnmower and sends a rock flying straight at the woman. The stone pierces through her eye, just like in Nick's vision, and that makes 3 down, with 6 more to go. Okay, death is starting to look pretty rusty here. It took several different attempts to kill this one woman who was sitting stationary in a barber's chair, and at this point, he's just starting to look unprofessional. With that kind of hit ratio, our survival chances have just gone way up, and that's great news for the rest of the survivors. As far as the rock that killed her, there's really no way to avoid this, and surprisingly, it's not an unprecedented scenario either. Ride-on lawnmowers kill an average of about 70 people each year, but as statistically unlikely as it is, she actually had a chance to survive. Now, this woman met Nick at the memorial earlier, and since Nick knew that she was one of the survivors, he could have warned her and the others that death was after them as soon as he found out. With this information, this entire scenario could have played out differently, and it all comes back to Tweedledee and Tweedledum here. As naughty as her 2 kids are, they're actually a blessing in disguise, because according to Nick's premonition, they never died in the accident, so they aren't on Death's kill list. She could have used her own children as a death-proof shield for any surprise attacks or freak occurrences. Death would have had to work a lot harder at finding an effective way to kill her, because it can't kill the kids yet if it's not their rightful time to die. If Death's own rules prevent him from killing people before it's their turn, then these 2 brats could have been this woman's strongest line of defense, and she can safely use them as shields to hide behind the rest of the way home. The next day, Nick and his friends find out about the mother's death and decide to meet up. He tells them about his visions, and the girlfriend shows them articles they found online. These past survivors had premonitions of tragic accidents before they happened, but every single one of them were killed in the same order they would have died in if they had never survived. They all realize the same is going to happen to them if they don't figure out how to stop it. The friends are freaked out and leave the apartment, but that's when Nick here gets another vision. He sees a flame shooting out of a blowtorch, a gas canister flying through the air, and a coil of wire. He's just been given clues about how someone else is going to die, but he realizes he might be able to figure out who's next. That night, they explore the racetrack to try and figure out who died in what order, but his memory isn't good enough to put the pieces together. Suddenly, the security guard grabs him from behind and demands to know why they're here. After explaining his vision, the guard shows him the surveillance footage from the day of the crash, and Nick here figures out the order the remaining survivors died in. The mechanic, his 2 friends, Janet and Hunt, the security guard, his girlfriend, and finally, himself. He suggests that they might be able to break this curse by saving the mechanic's life, but death is already one step ahead of them. The next day, they head to the garage where the mechanic works. The girlfriend tells him that 3 of the Speedway survivors have died in freak accidents, and they believe he's going to be next. Moving the conversation outside, he tells them that his wife died in the accident and he can't deal with this kind of superstition right now. But nobody realizes that death has already started a chain of events. In the garage, a can tips over and spills liquid onto a motorized winch. The cables start unwinding and the van it's connected to starts rolling backwards, stopping inches away from crushing the mechanic to death. The man walks away unscathed. But suddenly, the winch comes flying loose and breaks off the end of this gas tank. Launching forward, it slams the man into the mesh wire fence so hard that his body falls through the other side, and that makes it 4 down with 5 more to go. Okay, we have another rare opportunity to use someone as a guinea pig to test a theory that can help us all survive. We might be able to beat death at its own game by finding a way to die before it gets to us and then be resuscitated. With this in mind, we can meet the mechanic somewhere private and have someone sneak up to shock him with defibrillators to try stopping his heart. Now, it would actually be pretty difficult to achieve, and we would need to be lucky to pull it off, but it's still worth a try. First of all, to kill someone with a defibrillator, you have to create an arrhythmic heartbeat, but this can only be achieved through a carefully timed charge on what's called a T-wave in your normal heart rhythm. If the timing is successful, it produces a V-fib, which is a fatal rhythm, and they'll die. The next problem is that this can't be done through cloth or any thick body hair, so we'll need to pin him down and raise his shirt. Lastly, certain defibrillators won't release a shock if it senses a healthy heart without any arrhythmia, so we need to find the right kind for it to work. This is a lot working against us, but if we can pull it off, it might just save everyone's life. Death is a stickler for the rules, and once your heart stops, you're officially dead, so the life debt has been paid. Then we can bring him back with the defibrillators, and even though it's a high risk, we're already playing with borrowed time here. It's a worthwhile risk to take, and although death won't let you cheat him, we might still be able to win if we play by the rules. With another survivor dead, the security guard insists they have to warn the others, but Nick here has no idea who dies next. His friends Janet and Hunt died at the same time in his premonition, and the only solution he has is if they split up to try and save them both. Across town, Hunt here is about to answer the phone when a kid sprays him with water. Upset, he pushes the kid into the pool and steals his gun, throwing it behind this fence, but it switches on the pool's drain, and Hunt doesn't realize that he's just triggered his own death. Meanwhile, Janet here is going to the car wash to clean off her windshield when she suddenly gets a call from her friend Lori. She quickly tells her where she is before hanging up and enters with no idea that this is the cleanest death trap ever made. Passing through the grill brushes, her antenna gets ripped off and is sent flying to a power box, causing it to spark. Her car is stuck in place and the washers are trapping her on both sides, but that's when her car's electrics suddenly glitch and the sunroof begins to open. An overhead pipe bursts as a heavy stream of water falls into the vehicle and the car starts flooding with Janet inside. Forcing the sunroof wider, she squeezes her head through the crack but gets stuck when it suddenly closes on her neck. The power box sparks back on and pushes the vehicle through the tunnel towards a giant spinning washer that will rip the woman's head off. At the last second, she's rescued by the other survivors who drive their car in and push her out of harm's way. Lori here climbs on top of the vehicle and helps her friend out of the sunroof, getting her to safety before a giant pipe narrowly misses them. Back at the pool, Hunt is relaxing when a golf ball suddenly knocks his drink down and he drops his lucky coin. Seeing it fall into the water, he dives in to find it, but the drain suction drags him in and he can't push himself free. He's trapped at the bottom of the pool and no one can hear him scream. Nick finally arrives and calls out for his friend, but before he realizes where he is, the pressure from the pump reaches critical levels and his organs get sucked straight out of his body. That's 5 down and 4 more to go. Okay, as gruesome as it is, these types of accidents are a lot more common than you think. A pool's drain actually has a crazy amount of suction force, and it's even strong enough to pull an adult into its draft. Now, he would have drowned in under 3 minutes anyways, but as hopeless as this was, Janet here had plenty of opportunities to escape from her death trap without any help at all. Trying to exit through the sunroof was not a bad idea, but she didn't think things all the way through. Poking only your head out of a car limits your mobility, and the more logical thing to do is reach your arms out of the car first, because you can use the leverage to push yourself up and out. If the opening was too narrow, I also would have tried pushing with my feet to create more opposing force to open the sunroof further. Now, even if we assume none of this would have worked, there was still an excellent way for her to escape through the side window by using her car's seats. You can actually break through the glass by detaching the headrests, jamming the metal ends into the corner of the window frame, and pulling it back. This will help you crack the glass enough to shatter it and escape. It takes much less time and effort in comparison to kicking out the windshield, because car windows are made from tempered glass, so they're designed to hold up against blunt force trauma like kicking. Glass breakers can easily break through a car window because it concentrates the force applied to it into the smallest area possible, and while a headrest wasn't designed for this purpose, it will definitely get the job done. That night, the couple are death-proofing their home, but the girlfriend is freaked out. She knows that once the guard dies, she'll be next, and that's when a cold wind blows through the room. A cup of coffee is knocked over, spilling onto a newspaper and highlighting the words, "Through action, they were saved." Since they were able to save Janet, they think the message is a sign that the curse has been lifted. Going to the security guard's house to tell him the news, they walk in to find the man hanging from the ceiling. Suddenly, he starts choking and the rope breaks. When they ask him why he's doing this, he explains he's been trying to quit at life the entire day, but nothing has worked. Thinking that they're finally free from the curse, they decide to celebrate. But tomorrow, it's about to get so much worse. The next day, Nick here is cleaning up the apartment when the remote falls to the floor and the television turns on, showing a news report about the cowboy from the Speedway who's been hospitalized since the crash. Suddenly, Nick gets another vision and he sees an ambulance, a dripping faucet, and a hospital's caduceus symbol. If there was another survivor, then he's next in death's order, and that means they're all still cursed. Getting into the car, he calls the security guard, telling him to meet him at the hospital. Meanwhile, the cowboy is lying in his bed when he feels droplets hitting his face and looks up to find the ceiling is filling with water. He tries to call the nursing staff, but he's suddenly shocked and knocks the call button off his bed, leaving him no way to get help. Nick and the security guard finally find the cowboy in his hospital room, but before they can help him, a bathtub from the floor above falls to the ceiling and crushes the man to death. That's 6 down and only 4 more to go. Okay, this is a lot to take in. None of them knew that this cowboy was one of the survivors, and the fact that he was still alive was the only reason that the security guard couldn't take life's backdoor exit. This is actually a big deal, because it's clearly revealed one of Death's best loopholes to use to our advantage. All of this tells us that if you've cheated Death and it's not yet your turn to die, you can't die. I would want to learn just exactly how bulletproof we are, how falls from great heights might affect us, and anything else we can think of testing. Doing a little research in the name of science to define the boundaries of this loophole is going to tell us a lot more clearly what we can and cannot do, and how to use it to our advantage. Now, what's interesting here is that the only reason the security guard is unkillable is because the cowboy is still alive. So if I were in this position, I would be trying to save this guy at all costs. If we're not allowed to die, then fate would not be allowed to kill us. And since a massive tub falling onto our bodies would definitely kill us, then once I decide to jump in to save his life, we create a new predetermined outcome that the tub of water never falls, because it cannot kill me before my time to die. With this death curse, we can essentially overwrite another predetermined outcome with our own, and that's a superpower any Marvel hero would be jealous of. We can basically live life in complete defiance of risk for the benefit of finding new and more dangerous ways to cheat death. For example, by saving other people who would have died without your intervention, we can find regular civilians and turn them into survivors, which adds them into the kill order to be hunted down by death. If this was the case, then they would most likely be added onto the list after you, but we also learned that death will skip you if someone saves your life, and that puts you right back at the end of the line again, but this time, the line is much longer. Leaving the hospital, Nick here is crossing the street with a security guard to go look for the girls, when an ambulance suddenly comes out of nowhere and runs the man over. Nick is completely shocked by the guard's death, and realizes the vision he had earlier was for both the cowboy and the security guard. That's 7 down, with only 3 more to go. Racing to find his girlfriend, he drives to the mall when he notices an advertisement for the movie the girls are going to watch, and suddenly has a vision of rotating gears, nails flying through the air, and a massive explosion at a movie theater. He knows his friends are in immediate danger, and he'll do whatever it takes to rescue them, but it might already be too late. In a construction site, the crew is headed to lunch, but none of them notice a beam of sunlight hitting a pile of sawdust. Carried by the wind, a loose tarp hooks into a switch and turns on a massive fan that sends this cart rolling forward. Spilling a trail of turpentine, it leads straight to the theater that Laurie and Janet are in, and nobody has a clue. A fire starts behind the screen, and it's only a matter of time before the whole place is up in flames. Nick finds the girls in the theater and tells them the security guard is dead. Laurie gets up to leave, but Janet refuses to go with them and doesn't want to run from her fate anymore. The couple leave her behind in the theater, and moments later, she gets a front row seat to a massive explosion. Everyone in the building starts evacuating in a panic as the fire erupts out of the theaters, and the last 2 survivors run down an escalator to escape them all. They get halfway down when a column falls straight onto the escalator, exposing the grinding gears below them. He tries to hold on to his girlfriend, but there's no escape. Her leg gets caught, and the woman is crushed to death. But to Nick's surprise, he's suddenly pulled out of a vision, and he's back at the hospital like nothing ever happened. It was another premonition, and he realizes there's still a chance to save his girlfriend before it all happens again. Okay, this is a golden opportunity that will never come again. So far, Nick here has seen 2 types of premonitions. There are the clues he gets for the survivors locked in the death order, and then there are the visions where he lives through a disaster before it ever happens. This premonition gives him an extremely rare chance to save more people who he knows are going to die soon and cheat death on a much larger scale. Since the disaster he's trying to stop happens inside of a shopping mall, he could pull on a fire alarm and evacuate the building, which would save the lives of everyone who was supposed to die in the movie theater explosion. Tons of people would then be cheating death, and they would all be added to Death's kill list. This is great news, because now there are a lot more people that must be killed before you, and it gives us time to enjoy our lives. With his second chance, the boyfriend runs for the mall and slips into the construction site where he finds the burning cart next to the flammable barrels. He grabs a fire extinguisher and tries to spray the flames out, but he runs out of gas. Frustrated, he throws it away and breaks a table leg, tipping it forward. The boyfriend starts stomping the flames out, but a loose ember floats over to another pile of sawdust and sets it on fire just as the nail gun falls into the ground. It starts shooting holes in the flammable barrels, but Nick's arm gets hit and he's pinned to the wall. The liquid from the barrel starts leaking and flowing towards the open flames, but Nick here gets a clever idea. He pulls a long plank of wood towards himself and uses its lit end to turn on the fire sprinklers. As the room sprays with water, the flames are put out, and Nick here has saved his friends, having finally broken the curse. 2 weeks later, the boyfriend meets with the other survivors at a coffee shop. Nobody has seen anything strange since Nick saved them at the mall. They all think they've beaten death, but when he looks down, he sees a message scratched into the table. That's when he realizes nothing has changed. This was always a part of Death's final plan, and all of a sudden they look out the window to find a semi-truck crashing into them before they even had a chance to leave a tip.
But what do you think? How would you beat the Final Destination? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.